You're listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast, discussing all aspects of precision and long-range rifle shooting. This episode is brought to you by Impact Dynamics. And now, over to your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to the Precision Shooting Podcast. This is episode number 145. My name is Rusty. Joining me tonight, Andy is here. Andy, how you doing?
I'm doing well.
Good, mate. Good. You're all relaxed and ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, I'm cruisy as.
Good. Yeah, podcast prep has gone well.
Yep.
Excellent. Joining us again, Plushy, you back, mate?
G'day, man. How you going?
I'm going good. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah, it's all right. Well, we're back into it. Back into another. All sorts of stuff going on, but
You had a pretty busy week since the last one.
yeah, that was good. The club weekend went well. A bunch of new shooters out there. It was good fun. But anyway, I stop everything. Stop everything. You have changed your caliber plans, Andy. What is going on?
Well, I'm trying to keep up with the modern trends because no one says I'm cool.
Well, we were looking over the entries for the competition of guessing what barrel and muzzle brake you're getting, and started talking about it, and you're like, oh yeah, by the way, and then you told me what you're doing, and like that's not what we talked about last time. So
It's close. It's just an extra addition or subtraction.
So tell everyone what you were making for those who have forgotten and those who didn't care to listen, and now which way you're doing.
Well, I'm still unsure on what barrel and brake I'm getting.
Oh yeah, but
we know that one.
We did message Ash. By the way, all those guys who have entered, entries are still valid.
Yep.
Just we haven't narrowed down exactly what it is yet.
No.
Because Andy keeps changing his mind apparently.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to keep up with the modern trends. I was going to stick with the 6.5 Creedmoor just because I had the dies and I knew the cartridge and all of that gear. And then speaking to a few people and trying to keep up with, like I said, modern trends, I was like, I should look into this 6 Creedmoor. And
Fancy fandangled 6mm thing.
yeah, just drop the 0.5. What is that? And then turns out
it's quicker to say.
It's better. So I'm like, oh, okay, here we go. So, I spoke to Ash and I was like, hey, can we change this to a 6mm? And he's like, yeah, that will work. And I said, oh, cool. What barrel am I getting? It's like, I don't know. Oh, cool.
Well, you did just change your mind. So,
Yeah.
So all the plans Ash had probably made just gone out the window now.
That's it.
Change your plans. So, guys, if anyone wants to change their entry into the competition to guess what barrel brake Andy's getting, now it is changed. So there you go. Good.
That's it.
Plushy, your thoughts on the matter? Because you run or have run a 6mm Creedmoor?
Yeah, I still run. I do run a 6mm Creed. Yeah, I was a 6.5 Creed.
So he's just copying you,
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Well, I keep seeing how good Plushy shoots, and I was like, oh man, he doesn't have a top knot, and he's got a 6mm.
Yeah, I noticed you've lost the top knot, mate. So you've already committed to the cause.
That's it.
Good.
There's an entry requirement of no top knots. Yeah.
That's it.
No, I made the decision when I rebarreled that I ran the numbers and 6mm does everything a 6.5 does.
But better.
But faster. With
Quicker to say.
less elevation and less wind and less recoil, more importantly. Less recoil.
Yep.
It's a lot easier to spot your shots.
There we go. Gone on to the actual facts of the matter.
Yeah.
That's why.
And I think I'm going to like that because usually off barricades I do prefer to free recoil. So not having it up against my shoulder and having a lower recoiling round should help me.
How do you find that, Plush? Do you free recoil? Do you?
I don't free recoil, but I don't push into the rifle off of a barricade. So
You just recoil.
No, if you imagine holding up a sheet of paper between the butt of the rifle and your shoulder, like just enough.
Yep.
And it tracks straight back and true. And I can watch my shot. You generally watch trace off of a barricade, which is nice.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm sort of somewhere in between, I suppose. I definitely don't lean into it. Not with the wobbly barricades that we have anyway. I'll end up forwards of the firing line.
Good. So, Andy, just a question. So you don't care that you got dies, you don't care that you got cases, all that's out the window now, just a little bit less recoil and you want to be cool?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, so I have been tossing up like in the background with the new barrel, I wouldn't mind getting a new set of dies and things like that. So a what do you call it, bushing die.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, speaking to a couple more people, they're like, "Oh, why don't you just get a smaller bushing?" I was like, "Oh man, this makes so much more sense. That's easy."
Well, that was one of the drivers behind me dropping down to 6mm Creed, is I had bushing dies, and it cost me 2 bushings. I stepped down in 2 sizes to get from 6.5 to 6.
Perfect.
So it cost. And I used the same brass. I've got Liverpool brass, and it's probably on its 15th firing or something like that.
Yeah, right. Well,
And so it cost me, let's call it $100.
yep.
In dies.
So what does that look like for you, Andy? Are you going to keep the same brass that you've been running?
Yeah, yep. So I've not so long ago got a whole bunch, 600 cases of once fired 6.5.
Yeah, right.
So I'm going to go through the process of necking them down to 6mm now, I presume. And then the 500 odd, 6.5 bullets I've got lying around, might have to find another home.
You could send them down the 6mm.
Yep.
Swaging barrel, right? Yeah. Swage it down eventually. Good. Well, you just might have to get rid of those 6.5 projectiles before your barrel rocks up.
Ooh.
Whatever barrel you might be hitting.
I tried that at the end of the Steel Slam. I don't know if you saw me there, but I was just like letting people shoot my rifle, going, "Get rid of them, send them."
What I did see was your rifle hitting pretty well dead center, like every shot that got sent, and your excuses for missing targets during the Steel Slam was sort of like,
I'm a barrel.
Yeah, it's really disheartening when you give your rifle to another person who's like younger or not so experienced, and you go, "Hey, hit that 500 meter gong," and he hits it, and I'm like, "All right, move to the smaller one." Hits it. Oh, keep hitting that gong, damn it!
I did that with a videographer, Josh. I gave
was
him my rifle,
Yeah.
and I was like, "Don't even worry about the big target. Let's go to the small target at 500 meters." I'm like,
And he's shot a gun a handful of times, mate.
yeah, new shooter.
Yep.
He'd never shot mine. A couple of dry fires, and
Yep.
I was like, "Cool, 0.7 wind. You'll be right." And he proceeded to smash the center. And I'm like, "Cool, 0.7," and did it a few more times. And I'm like, "Oh, it's dropped a bit, 0.5," and he probably put 7 out of 10 shots.
Yep.
And
So you're just trying to show off how good a wind reader you are.
well,
Is that-
apparently, yeah. 'Cause then I got down and shot my rifle and proceeded to miss a whole bunch of times. And I'm like, well,
Did you do that strategically to make him feel better about shooting so he'd get involved?
That's what we all do, isn't it?
Yeah, because that's what I've always done when I've missed after someone else's shot. I'll be like, yeah, that'll make him feel good about this.
That barrel is
That
just
was
burnt out right then and
That was
there.
the last-
That was it.
Oh, fantastic. Cool. Okay, so new territory for you, Andy.
Yeah, that's it. So there'll be a bit of
Creedmoor.
annealing, a bit of neck sizing going on, bit of fire forming if I have to. No, probably not. No.
So tell us a bit about the process of going down from 6.5 down to 6. Obviously, Plushy's done it as well, but what does that look like for someone who hasn't done it before?
I don't know. I haven't done it before.
Sorry, that was to the group.
I was pretty lucky actually. I mean, there is some fire forming. I'm not
So you
gonna
talked
lie.
about the 2 bushings and
Yeah, so the bushing that I used when I was running the 6.5 was, I think, 0.289.
Mhm.
And then the one I worked out I needed for the 6mm was 0.269 or thereabouts. And I did a bit of research, and some people suggested that when you're using bushing dies, you can get some issues if you try to go down a caliber in one step, as opposed to doing it with your normal die.
Yeah. Yep.
So I decided to spend the $50 on a bushing and not lose any cases. And it worked. I didn't lose a single case during the process. So I just
Nice.
made it a 2-step process.
Yep.
Went through and did one and dropped them all down. And then I did a fire form and worked out that when I bumped my shoulders, I bumped them a couple of thou. And then I didn't even have to change my die setup from when the chamber job was done on the new barrel versus the old barrel. It was exactly the same. I'm like, this is easy.
I remember Andrew Noble talking about stepping down cases where he stepped down a 3-threat Lapua down to a 1.7. No, 22, not 1.7. Whoa.
There was some talk about 5,000 feet a second, wasn't there?
Yeah, and I think it took about 7 bushings to do that. It was quite a pass. Anyway, it was you only do that once and then fire form it out and away you go.
What's the barrel life on that one shot?
150 rounds was
Wow.
the barrel life.
Jeez.
Yeah, expected barrel life 150 rounds. So you don't want to miss.
There'd be 150 very exploded bunnies.
Yeah. Although if you were Andy, barrel life would have been 80. and then continue to complain about barrel life for the next 70 rounds.
Yep.
Oh no, my barrel's gone. How many rounds you shot? 12. Yeah, but that's barrel's running out.
Yeah.
Got to get a new one.
Oh, you can't catch them once they run out.
Okay, great.
But
Right. Are you sponsored by a barrel? Is that when we find out and
Should I
work
be?
out which the sounds of things? We find out when you actually work out who your barrel is. That's because you've been hooking it. Is that why you've not committed to a brand? Because you've got a few different contracts on the table.
Yeah, I've got about 12 contracts on the table. I'm just keep tossing between them, work against each other and, keep driving up the price, driving down the price.
Driving up the price. No, you're not charging me enough. I want to pay more.
That's it. So,
Good. Excellent. I look forward to the signing of the deal.
that's it. I might even get some permanent texture and write on the barrel. I don't know. Who wants to sign my barrel?
That's the thing. You could almost get whatever barrel deal you get, and then just say whoever you want. Look pretty
That's
similar.
Yep. Who's going to know?
Probably the barrel company. Yeah, whatever. Oh, good. Anyway, well, exciting change. And was it very much the same reason as Plushy for you to go from 6.5 down to 6? Is that lower recoil was the big driving factor?
I looked at it and, like I said, I can't recall exactly, but I don't think there's a point where a 6.5 Creed over a 6 Creed shoots less elevation or less wind. I think it shoots inside pretty much the whole way, well, over the distances we shoot anyway. With some less recoil. Like I used to struggle with watching my trace. It's pretty vital for what, PRS style shooting, that you need to see where your bullet goes, especially if you're shooting into a berm that's wet or got grass in it or something like that. You need to be able to see your shots. And I wasn't able to do that. The conditions had to be perfect for you to really be able to watch that.
Yep.
And as soon as I dropped back to the 6mm with the less recoil, I'll probably watch 80% of my trace on every shot sort of thing, regardless of conditions. It's really got to be a pretty hot day or something along those lines for me not to be able to see it. So it's made it a lot easier. The only downside we'll put out there for people is, you're dropping 30% of your projectile weight. Yep. So you don't hit the targets as hard.
Sure.
And there's still no doubting.
Says the guy running a 223 AI.
Yeah.
Now. Yeah. 85 grains. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, only 20 grains less than what I run out of the 6mm Creed. Come on. But I did find that I had to watch. The splash isn't as obvious on the 6mm versus the 6.5. Sure. So now you're watching for things like, did the plate flick sort of left to right or right to left, like watching that twist, or did it just swing backwards and forwards? Okay, it's dead center. Like, you've sort of got to pay a bit more attention to the plate.
And then you run a slightly more of a chance of a RO missing the call.
No, I don't think so.
Not so much with a 6.
No. I don't think you
certainly with a 2 to 3 that can play a factor.
Yeah, no, I don't think you'd get to a point, maybe 700-800 meters plus.
Okay,
maybe
sure, as the distance.
But I don't think you'd ever get to a point where an RO wouldn't call an impact.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So from a new shooter's perspective then, because we're talking here about going from a 6.5 down to a 6, and many new guys have a 308 in the cupboard, and clearly there's this tipping point between going like a 308 down to 6.5, and a lot of the argument there is, one, ballistics has a significant advantage, but two, the recoil's reduced. In conversations, guys, this one because of these two reasons, and then talking about going down to a 6mm. Now, from last year's data, the most popular cartridge in Australia PRS was 6.5 Creedmoor. So clearly it works, but majority of the guys in the top 10 were running 6mm. Is there a point, and if so, where it really matters to go? Like, should a brand new shooter be going, oh no, I'll go 6mm and it might cost more in... there's obviously some downsides, probably cost related. Any thoughts on that, Plushy?
Yeah, definitely. There's barrel life is a factor when you start getting the overbore or calibers. So I'm expecting out of a 6mm Creed probably 2,000 rounds barrel life. Yep. So if that's
as opposed to a 6.5,
2.5 to 3.
Okay. Yep.
Maybe a bit more.
Yep.
I'm going to go like 5,000 on one. It's been shot out for a while.
You're going to complain for the last 3,000.
You've definitely been complaining for about a year.
Yeah. I have been.
So there's a bit of a balancing.
Life? Yeah,
there's definitely a balancing factor. Like, well, I've got a training rifle and a comp gun, and next season, assuming there's a season, my 6mm Creed will be shot at 2-day matches pretty much only, apart from a few training rounds.
Sure.
Just keep familiar with it.
Yep.
But so I've made a definite decision that that's going to be a barrel a season.
Yep.
And regardless of whether there's 1,200 rounds on it or 1,800 rounds on it, at the end of the season it'll get pulled.
Okay.
And put a new one on. So you're starting to get into that realm of performance. Like, you spend a lot of money to get a small gain. If you're just starting out, there's nothing wrong with a 308. You know, you're going to get 5,000, 7,000 rounds of barrel life.
Yep.
And early on in your shooting career, rounds on target, like practice rounds, are going to pay off.
Is more
Is
important.
way more important than
those
having
little additional gains.
Like,
yeah.
if you were to go put, in 12 months, put 5,000 rounds down range with a 308 versus 2,000 rounds with a 6mm Creed, I tell you who's going to win in a shoot off against each other, despite the fact the 6mm is going to have the ballistic advantage.
Yep.
The guy that's done 2.5 times the
work
is going to shoot, read wind and going to have better fundamentals and that sort of stuff, better positioning of barricades and whatnot. So it's a bit of a balancing act between that and not investing maybe too heavily in something that you're not going to use long term.
Sure.
Is there a little bit of savings in powder? But that would be about it, isn't it?
Nah, like I think with the 6.5 I was running 42 point something grains, and with the 6 I'm running 40 grains. But
okay,
I've got an extra
barely.
I've got an extra 3 inches of barrel on the new one.
Yeah,
so
okay.
that pretty much makes up the.
Said that very proudly.
Yeah.
Big upgrade.
Didn't even cost that much. I highly recommend. The performance has
Bit of
been
an
amazing.
extension.
Amazing.
Good. I'm glad.
Everyone comments. It's great.
Sure they do. I'm sure they do. Andy, what about your thoughts on you started with 6.5, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah, so you've sort of started in that category of, we'll get the one that's pretty popular and seems to make sense.
Yep.
But now you're shifting. Do you wish you started on 6mm, or you are happy with the path you tread?
No, I'm pretty happy with the path that I tread. I just wanted something that was reliable, and the ammo was pretty easily accessible, and I don't think there's anything wrong with the 6.5.
I think the one thing to take away from it is, if you're the guy that wants a rifle that can shoot a bit of PRS, maybe a bit of long range, maybe a bit of hunting sort of thing. Yeah. I mean, it's not necessarily legal in Victoria for deer, but pretty much everything else. If you want to use it for more things than just a comp gun, a 6.5 is a far better choice.
Yep.
It can do more. You're going to be struggling a little bit with the 6mm.
Yeah.
So that's something else to take into account, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So have you looked at the energy performance of things downrange? There's a fair difference, is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
definitely.
I guess that's what you're talking about before, where
When
the
it's hitting the
target's
plate.
not moving as
Yeah.
much on the 6mm. That translates in the real world, in the hunting world, as to more impact on that game and then probably better overall hunting round.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're doing and how far you're shooting.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't shoot anything bigger than a fallow with a 6mm sort of thing. I'll be looking for something a bit bigger.
Well, you're essentially talking about a 243, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, actually,
Which is
a little bit less, really.
Yeah.
A little bit less.
Yep. Which is, everyone, a lot of the shooting community would know is a very versatile round, but not for massive game. So
That's one thing I was going to ask, actually. What projectile are you thinking you're going to run?
I think there's a 105 or a 108. I think. I don't know, something pointy.
You're talking
Thought this through well. Yeah.
I'll probably stick with Hornady.
Yep.
Don't know
Yeah,
why.
it's a 108 ELD match.
Yeah, I think that's the one I've been looking at. Really, I haven't looked into it that much.
Yep.
Yeah.
Something that will fit the barrel and go straight. As you can tell, I'm heaps into like all the data side of stuff. I just
want to get out there and
smash it together
shoot.
and get it out there.
Yeah, good.
Just do what all the cool kids are doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just follow the trends, mate. Follow
That's
the
it.
trends.
That's what I'm doing.
He'll have a GT next year.
Yep. Well, that's and so why? I mean, I can guess a few of the reasons as to why you stay in the Creedmoor one, because I guess you've got the brands and stuff. But if we took out the fact that you've got brass and all you had to do was change bushings in your die, would you have stayed with Creedmoor, or were there other things you were considering when dropping from 6.5 down to 6?
There wasn't really, and I haven't thought of that. I
Okay.
haven't really compared any other 6mm cartridges.
Yeah, you went over. Hey, I've got this. This is actually not that inconvenient to go down. I get the benefit of going to a 6 mil.
Yep.
Without the harassment. That's not the word. With the inconvenience of going. I wanted to be harsher than inconvenience. So without having to get new dyes and all this sort of stuff as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Plus, you would have looked into, knowing you would have looked into every 6 mil that's ever been invented when you were thinking about changing.
Well, I'm just patiently waiting for some guy that's got a 6 mil GT to shoot it so I can see how it goes.
Oh, you're wait. I'm going to never shoot it when you're around.
Yeah.
Oh, Plushy's here. I'll put the gun away.
No, for me I didn't really have to make that choice when I went down to 6 mil Creed because I already had the brass and I just necked it down.
So you're in the same.
So it's
same
cost me nothing
situation.
to go a 6 mil Creed apart from the barrel really,
Yeah.
and some different projectiles. So I'm not committed.
Mm-hmm.
I thought about the 6BR.
Yep.
I like it.
Were there some issues with feeding in the BR?
I think
Well, they're pretty well ironed out.
pretty well ironed out. Well, you know,
It's I think it's one of those things with the BR. There's a potential that's a factor you've got to take into consideration to resolve. And there's obviously ways to do that with magazine kits and bits and pieces. But it's another step that now got to consider.
Yep.
That you have to make sure it can feed smoothly.
Yeah, I think I was pretty keen on the 6GT to see where that lands, and
Yep.
who knows, I might end up in that place yet.
Yep.
But I've got my trainer that's nearly built, so the comp gun is not getting used a whole heap.
Yeah.
So I've sort of lately I've been leaning to run the 6 Creed hot and fast, like as close to the range limit as I can get to without having pressure issues and that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So as close as I can get to 3200, and if I'm going to run a barrel a season, I may as well get everything out of it.
Okay.
And then just that's what it is. What it is, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. What are your thoughts there? And probably same one for you, Andy. Changing to a new cartridge, because there does seem to be a bit of a trend, depending on who you listen to and which way you go, of winding that back in terms of not pushing the limits on it. There does seem to be more and more guys, particularly in the US, but where they're winding back to 3,000 or thereabouts, sitting around there or even lower. But a really consistent, solid, perhaps more predictable sort of setup. Have you
I've
tested
been
with that?
Yeah, you listen to some of those guys like VP Precision.
Yeah,
and those,
VP Precision.
they
boys
talk
are
about
really
it a lot.
keen on it. Yeah.
And I'm keen to give my theory a go.
Yep.
I think those guys have got 2 or 3 rifles that are exactly the same, as opposed to a couple of different calibers.
Yep.
And it's sort of I'm wondering if that's a point of difference.
Okay.
Whether they just want to get that barrel life, and they shoot like a lot more than what
I was going
to
to say, is there a factor there that they shoot a lot more matches and a lot more in general, and so therefore perhaps they're going through barrels, like they're ordering 2-3 barrels in one go, and so perhaps is the lower node more repeatable, whereas you might get a gun that this one the one you're running sits on 3158, and that works really, really well there, but then the next barrel you put onto it needs to go to 3210 to get a similar performance where it tightens back up. I'm spitballing here, by the way, but whereas if you're a lower one, you've got a much bigger buffer room to be able to get similar performance.
Yeah, I think those guys shoot in such varied conditions as well. Those guys are playing for keeps, and they don't want a grain of sand to ruin their weekend.
Sure.
So they want everything repeatable, reliable.
Mm-hmm.
But I did hear some disturbing things the other day where some of those guys, I think Jake Gavir pulls his barrels at about 1,000 rounds.
Oh yeah, I was listening to that very
That was
podcast.
the most recent one, and I started doing the math in my head, and I was like, I can't afford that. I need sponsors.
Wow. Yeah.
So that was really interesting to see that.
Maybe Andy could hook you up with one of the contracts he doesn't
I
take.
reckon, I'll take one of your rejects.
He'll have 11 spare.
I'll have a spare 6.5 barrel soon.
Plenty of life left on it once it's off his gun.
See, that was really an interesting one to know that they were pulling the barrels that early, and still running them pretty conservative. So that was very interesting. I mean, I guess it really depends in your workup of your load. Like if you've got this ridiculously accurate node at 2900, you run it.
Yeah,
that's right. I mean, as much as I want to push it fast, it still has to be.
You'll let the gun guide you. Still.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. It's just velocity is just a number. Elevation is just a number.
Yeah. Wind is just a bitch.
Well, the faster it goes, the less wind. So
yeah. Okay.
I think I'll be definitely leaning towards the slower velocity and just trying to keep the barrel last a little longer. On my end of
You've
things.
managed to do well out of the 6.5. That's lasted an extra year.
That's it. And the last couple of matches, I've been pushing it real hard too. As it's been wearing out, I'm like, I got to bump up the speed. Next node. But yeah. Would the guys in the US, they be shooting further distances as well?
Yeah,
So
I was about to bring that into the equation. Yeah, there is a lot more distance there than we are experiencing at the moment. But that'll change here, or is changing here. But that's certainly a factor to consider, that they need to stay tighter for a lot longer.
Yeah, I would like to get 2 seasons out of a barrel. I think
just don't shoot very often.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I can do that.
Yeah, I looked at that as well, and my concern was you get to July and it stops shooting, and then you're like, if you're going to have one ready to go, sort of thing, and then you're like, you've got to work up a load, and then it might sort of start to impact you. You start rushing, you have to miss a match or something like that.
Well, that's the bench rest shooting guys. They often their barrel life they pull them at 700-800 rounds or thereabouts. From what guys I know in that world. And for that reason, that they can't afford for that barrel to go through a match, and so it's off 800. It's well and truly within its life frame and
span.
That's the word. But it probably has plenty. I mean, you probably grab that barrel off and put it on something else and keep on going for another. Well, if you're Andy, probably another 1,500
at least
rounds that day. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking about emailing Jake and be like, "Can I have your barrels at the pool?"
Send them
I reckon they got life in them.
Yeah, and they probably do, but exactly what you brought out is you hit July, you hit halfway through the season, you're like, this is gone if you don't have a spare ready to rock and roll. Yeah.
Now on that sort of maybe way around it, have you looked at EC tuners or anything like that?
I might have 1 or 2 in the post.
Oh, hello. Okay, here's some good news.
Yeah, I was going to say I have chatted to Ash about it as well.
Yep.
And we might see what we can do.
So for those not familiar with them, and for those of us who are on podcasts and haven't delved into them far enough to understand the concept, but even for those who don't even know what you're talking about, can you elaborate on that?
So essentially, it's an adjustable weight on the end in terms of distance along, so that the weight of it itself is a fixed weight, but where you screw it in and out to position it slightly on your barrel changes, which should change your harmonics and grouping. Plushy, continue.
Take over.
Now for the real explanation.
The EC tuner is a good one because it's been made in a way that it can work with a brake.
Yep.
So traditionally, you put a tuner on or a brake. We traditionally wouldn't even put a brake on. It's been for bench rest guys. Yep. But we all shoot with brakes, and the EC tuner is designed in a way where you've got the barrel a different diameter thread, larger, that's set back further into the barrel, further towards the chamber.
Okay.
And you've got your standard muzzle brake thread, and you can move the weight, the EC tuner, forwards or backwards, and adjust the harmonics of the barrel, and then you can.
It screws onto the muzzle brake.
Nope, it doesn't touch the muzzle brake. So it screws onto the barrel.
Screws onto the barrel.
And then the muzzle brake screws on after the tuner.
Right, okay, yep.
And then the theory behind that is, you load up your 40 grains of powder.
Yep.
And rather than going 40.2, 40.4, 40.6 or whatever, you start adjusting your tuner. Yeah, and you can tune your load with the tuner as opposed to doing it by with your scales.
Yep.
So everyone that's bought those auto tricklers,
might be some up for sale cheap, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
But I think the real bonus of it is you can go to a match and your practice day, you shoot some groups and you're like, it's a bit hotter here. It's going a bit faster.
Yep.
And
your node's off a bit.
If you've done your homework, or you don't have to have done your homework as long as you've got enough enough rounds loaded up.
Look over Plushy's shoulder while he's noting down and get the answers.
In theory, you can
teacher's edition.
That's it.
You can tune your load back down again. And,
yep.
10 or so rounds.
Because they're not new. They've been in the rimfire world, especially because obviously rimfire you don't have the option of, reloading is not particularly common, and so you can do all sorts of weight sorting, bits and pieces. But on top of that, you can use barrel tuners to tune to that ammo because your ammo is almost fixed.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned in the bench rest world, are they present in F class much at all? Given that you've done a bit of that in your background.
Some guys run them, some guys don't.
Okay.
You tend to see them more on the TR guys, target rifle with the 308s.
Yep.
A lot of those guys just throw their powder, and
Okay. Yeah.
they've got a reasonably generous size target.
Yep.
And they worry more about their wind calls than anything else.
Okay.
Tune the loads with a tuner, but it's definitely there.
Okay. Yeah.
I've got I've got a 308 that's got a tuner on it.
Yep.
I've only adjusted it once or twice.
So what does this do in terms of, given that our sport has a lot more movement in it and going into barricades and positions and all that sort of gear, both with actually manoeuvring the gun round, it's not getting in the way, and changing the balance of the gun is the other factor that
if you've seen the size of Andy's muzzle brake, it's definitely not going to add anything that's bigger than that.
Well, I
got a pretty big bell end.
so when's quarantine for you? 14 days.
No,
what did you say? It was an EC
tuner, Eric Cortina
tuner.
Yeah.
They
look. If they weighed more than probably 150 grams, I'd be surprised.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to catch you up on a barricade or anything. It's definitely smaller than the brake I've got
so
at the moment.
I'm looking at this now, and this is different to what I envisaged. Right. There's a image here a little bit lower down that has it's probably closer to the type of thing that I was thinking of. I thought it was a much bulkier unit, and this is really a sleeve on a on the barrel, and it doesn't really extend in terms of size. There's a great photo here of one where the end of it is about the size of a muzzle brake.
And they've got the tapered one as well. They've got two options there. They've got the square edge and the tapered would be what we would go for.
Yeah,
so it doesn't get hooked up so easy.
Yep. Yeah, that looks and so in terms of weight, I guess you can you chuck another little counterweight on the back end, and you're probably back to balance if that's the way you've been set up, or if you're set up around it. Are they? Do you think they're going to be like a very commonplace, or are they a little bit more technical that people won't?
I think the guys that are running a 6mm because it's their dedicated comp gun, would consider it. I don't think your average shooter that wants to compete and have fun and be competitive, but they're not pushing for the win, so to speak. They're not looking for that last 1 or 2% to get them over the line.
Yep. But does this, like, if this is going to take out the fact of like, if you can just go, right, this is a reasonable load, that's what I started with, it was 40, I tried 40 and I tried 42 and I tried 44, and so these are the powders that I went with, and 40 was the closest, so then I'll worry about my fine tuning on the fly as we go. It seems to perhaps there's an advantage here for the average shooter that might just go, you know what, I'll go that way and I'll use that to tune my loads rather than bothering with this different powder throwing stuff. I like your theory. I don't have the data to say one way or the other. Cool. Yeah. Because I'm just throwing some ideas out that this may, if that does that, and I guess you will find out soon, ish. That whether or not that will do, or if one of our listeners or several of our listeners are running these things, be wonderful to hear how much of a difference this is making, and whether or not this is going to be a common thing to see on a lot of the more custom rigs. We're probably not going to see it on a TAC A1 so commonly, but once people start, Andy's going to put on one of his, that sort of thing. That was interesting.
You should put the rubber bands on yours. I heard they work really well.
Yeah.
Just roll them forwards and backwards.
Right.
I've got some old rubbers lying around.
In your push bike, when you just put those little foam things on the spokes.
Yeah.
It works. Yeah.
Foam? I thought you meant to have the ones that rattle and as you go around, make the noise. And I was going to put that on the Go Tiger. So as I go through a barricade, just get all this. Anyway, all right, Spokey Dogies on the GT. Sounds fantastic.
So with your load development on that, I presume, or what I'm hoping to do is sort of try a bunch of different powder weights and try and find maybe a flat spot in powder pressures, or in velocity, I should say, and then tune the actual grouping size with the tuner.
Yeah, my theory was I'm getting to a point where I need to commit to a caliber because I'm going to order my own reamer, and then I'll have a reamer to my spec, and then I'll stick with the same barrel and the same reamer, and then it's never going to be exactly the same, but it's going to be there and thereabouts. And the tuner might be the thing that you go with your 40 grains, and it's going to be within that 39.8 to 40.2 if you didn't have a tuner, but hopefully you can send it a few clicks one way or the other. And
Is like how much variation can you get out of one of these things? Have you seen? Like, how do you measure that in terms of?
you can do a series of, like say 15 dots on a page
Yep.
at 100 meters. You just shoot one, move a click, shoot another one. You'll see this wave pattern
Okay.
of where it
right.
starts to converge on a point. And it becomes pretty, rather than shooting for groups, you just shoot on 15 individual groups.
Yeah, right.
Put it that way.
Yeah, one-shot groups are the best.
They are. It's really hard to stuff them up.
And you can find a way.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I reckon I have. I thought there was a challenge somewhere that I did pretty well at doing that.
No.
Is it supposed to go through sideways?
Oh, I didn't know we were going to be talking about tuners, but there we go. I've done nothing on them. I know that they've been sort of starting to make a resurgence, or not a resurgence, but into the precision rifle world, starting to become a more talked about item.
Yeah, I think with that sort of design where you can use it with a brake or even in the States a suppressor,
Yep.
it really makes it a valuable thing.
Mm.
I'm interested to see the new the APA, the Gen. Is it a Gen 3?
Gen 3 APA, yeah.
They've got the
Muzzle
ports. They've got the ports in the top. I think that you can take 2 or 3 screws, something like that you can actually start to tune your brake a little bit to stop the muzzle kicking up and things like that. That'll be a good combo, I think.
So this one has 8.
That's got lots. Yeah,
8 ports that you can adjust. This is the little bastard muzzle brake with 8 little grub screws you can take out, and I guess to some degree direct how much gas you port where and when, which is interesting to see.
Don't want to burst your bubble, but I've got that on my brake already. The one from eBay.
Did you with your drill?
Oh, I had to tap the holes out. Yeah. But I never spent the time actually testing it. I just plugged them up and I was like, oh, don't want that. That's why I keep missing.
Yeah, that's right.
That's why I can't spot my shot.
Might be the eBay bit that probably is the more significant factor.
It is on crooked.
Jesus.
So if I took the screws out, it'd be pushing it sideways.
Have you thought about like maybe trying? Just, I don't know, like with everything.
Oh, sometimes.
Okay.
I must say on the steel slam when I was running a few stages and I've got a Terminator brake on my rifle.
Yep.
And I never realised how unpleasant it was to be a stage officer for until somebody else had one. It might have even been Joel.
Yeah, okay.
And he took the first shot and I stepped 2 meters back and went, wow. It's like getting punched in the face. I'm like, now I understand why people sit down on the bench next to me when you're shooting off a bench and then they get up and move to the one next door.
It's not just because of your red hair. Yeah, it's
gingivitis. It's contagious.
Oh, good. Oh, yeah. Better get you out of the room. Oh, excellent. Yeah, speaking of, I know we covered the Steel Slam last week or a couple of weeks ago, but we did mention at the end of the episode about some of the lessons you learned in terms of actually running matches. And so now, what are you up to? You run obviously a couple of club matches, but you've run. This is the second one day you've done.
I inherited the
run and gun.
Run and gun.
Yeah,
a little bit last minute early this year.
Yep.
And the Steel Slam was one that I'd put my hand up a while ago and said I was going to do.
So the run, that's right, the run and gun, Travi was on that one.
Yeah, he had to go interstate. I think Canberra got smashed with hailstorms or something like that.
That's all right, he often has last minute. So was most of the run and gun that you did in March, that was his course of fire that you implemented?
No, it was mostly my course of fire. There was a couple of stages that
you kept.
Travi, that he'd sent through that I kept.
Yep. And having a look at the two matches, obviously about 6 months apart, and one pandemic in between them. But what did you do differently from running your first match to your second match, and some of the things that worked, didn't work?
Yeah, I think the run and gun was pretty clear that it was a movement based match.
Yep.
So we're trying to focus on that rather than having tons of barricades and different targets and that sort of stuff. So it was.
Sure.
It was very much about getting from point A to point B and doing something on the way or something on those lines. Yeah.
Heart rate orientated.
Yeah, not even necessarily heart rate orientated. Like, I shot the match, you shot the match.
I did too. That's right.
you-
Why am
and
I
then
asking these questions?
There wasn't I'm not the fittest guy getting around, and there wasn't a stage where I was like, oh, geez, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
But you had to do something. It's more about breaking your position and breaking your train of thought, and then getting you back on target again. So you sort of got to start fresh.
Yeah.
But this one was more about, I like to have it as a match where you have to think about what you need to do, and the decisions that you make at the very start of the stage impact you very heavily at the end of the stage.
Okay. Yeah.
I like that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So yeah, and it was definitely I made the decision to step up the difficulty, and definitely noticed that on the results.
Yeah, there was a lot more, and we did sort of talk about it fairly in depth last episode. But just to recap very quickly, we noticed a lot of guys had lost the edge of shooting matches regularly, and so a lot of that planning or thinking through stages prior to shooting them, a lot of that was perhaps took a little while to kick back in, more than it would in a normal bigger match. And so there was plenty of like strategic stages where you sort of had to plan out what you were going to do, whether you're going to go like put a focus on doing those shots first or those shots first, or solid positions over wobbly positions versus further targets closer. Yeah, there was much to consider, and perhaps that's what caught a number of guys, or almost everyone, out.
Yeah. No, I think I've had a fair bit of time to consider the match, the last couple of weeks. And on the day I was a bit worried. I was like, maybe I made this too hard. And then I was a bit concerned about it. I don't want anyone to come out and not have fun. That's not the point. There's definitely a fine line between pushing the envelope of making it challenging and pushing the envelope of making it too hard.
Yes.
But as I sort of pulled the match apart, there's probably only 2 stages that I would make any changes to out of the 9 stages. All of the bags.
Yep.
Having 4 different targets or 5 different targets plus 10 shooting positions was too much.
Just too many
factors. There's probably 10 or 15 guys in Australia that could manage that stage on reflection.
Yeah, I remember thinking something Regina was talking about on her segment in the Modern Day Sniper, Modern Day Rifleman seminar, where she was talking about, yes, test me on that, or test me on that, or test me on that.
Yeah.
But don't test all of them in one go.
It definitely resonated with me, but I also challenge that view that if we become stagnant and don't push the boundaries, we'll never get better. I don't want to see that.
There's a balancing act in there. You're like, you don't want to test one single thing.
Yeah, that's.
But there is also a too much going on.
I think that'd be a good stage for a PRS finale at the end of a solid competition season where everybody's on, and you're really separating you're having a competition where there's 40, 50, 60 people, but you're really having a competition to sort out the top 10 sort of thing. Like that's probably a stage for that. So the change I'd make to that would be 1 target. 10 shooting positions, same target.
But that's the thing is you become, the position and the problem solving are 2 aspects of that stage you would be solving. It would be challenging. And you would remove the targetry factor, which then that's one less thing to think about. But there's still plenty on that stage to think about, for sure. Yeah. Okay. And the other change? The other stage that you would change? Oh, yeah. So we talked about that.
Yeah, it was 90 seconds for 6 shooting positions.
Yeah.
And it was always, I didn't want people to be able to get 6 shooting positions because it included a mag change, and I wanted them to think about, I've really only got 10 available shots.
Yeah.
I've got 6 positions. Which one's going to take up too much time versus is not a stable position?
Yeah.
So I really wanted that to be a challenge for people. But if I did it again, I'd probably put 120 seconds on that, and maybe 1 or 2 people would have got all their shots off. Yeah,
make it available, or at the point where it's possible. You'd have to be boogieing on very quickly.
Yeah, definitely.
It is achievable, though very extremely challenging.
Yeah, definitely.
Andy, you shot both those stages.
Yeah. The bags one, I think I did get quite flustered in the start of it, where you have to grab all these bags and put them in random spots.
You got flustered on that stage as the RO.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
I didn't know. I got it mixed up.
let me tell the story.
Go for it.
Because Nick Halliwell was shooting. So if there's two guys to get flustered on one stage and confused, that's probably a pretty good combination of you and Nick. And so Nick went and put there was all these different positions, and you had to put different bags on different positions prior to grabbing your rifle, put that all on, and then you were shooting from different targets as we established. So Nick went through all of that. I was filming him, which is why I remember it. But and he put it all on different stuff and did his usual, talking it all through out loud, and then went to grab his gun. And then whatever the stage was, you directed him differently on engaging the target. Either he had to shoot to the one target, or he only had to shoot one, and you were telling him to, or whatever it was. And then it all became the crowd was yelling different instructions to what you were yelling, to what Nick was understanding. And it reminded me, actually, it was in the exact same position at the finale last year where Nick was on a stage with Steve Passfield ROing, and Nick was shooting. And after shooting the wrong target 3 times and Nick yelling, why didn't you give me the points? Steve yells out, pink stick, yelling out pink stick, because the target had this big pink stick that was underneath it. And anyway, they were yelling back and forth, and they got to the end of it, and they took the earmuffs off, and he goes, I was hitting the IPSC target. And Steve goes, I said pink stick, not IPSC. So while you guys were yelling at each other or trying to shoot that stage, I was yelling out pink stick. But it was it just happened to be in the exact same location, reminding me very much of that story. So yes, you did get confused on that stage.
Yeah, and it was simply just taking that extra 30 seconds to read through the brief, like word for word.
Correctly.
Because, I think I skipped over, because, correct me if I'm wrong again, it was 1 shot per position, and I missed over that per position. So I read it as 2 shots on each target. You just choose the positions, but you change once you've, So I'm confused now.
I don't know. I'm not even sure what.
Anyway, so I thought it was 1 position, 2 shots, when it was 1 target, 2 shots, but different positions. So
Pink stick.
Pink stick.
I think that's just the when you're stuffed up completely, just yell out pink stick and everyone.
I think the funniest part about that was Nick went away and he was like, I think my batteries are flat in my ears. He'd been shooting the whole day and he had no batteries, and I think he double plugs as well. Maybe you should turn those on.
Maybe give that a go. Oh, well.
But the tyre one you were talking about before, I found that quite good. It's deceptively unstable, those tyres. It's almost like trying to balance on a spring, because they all have a bit of give, and the way that they were stacked, the higher you went, the more wobble there was.
Yep.
And so I went to pack that up, and what I didn't realise when I went to pack it up is I went to lift the first tyre up, and I'm like, this is pretty heavy. Pulled on it, and the whole thing jumped up in the air. I'm like, oh, they're screwed together. I'm like, no wonder you could get away with the unusual stacking you achieved, and it wasn't about to fall over.
Yep.
But I think I just went, oh well, it's going back like this. I haven't got a drill, so I just grabbed the whole thing, and it pulled itself apart as I walked.
I'd highly recommend not using tyres in the next competition, because there's going to be random screws sticking out of them.
You'll be glad to know that I did unscrew the tyres.
There are no snow tyres.
Thanks for listening to the Precision Shooting Podcast. To continue the discussion, check out our Facebook page. And for more information, head to our website, www.precisionshootingpodcast.com.au. This episode was brought to you by Impact Dynamics.